watching this right now and they're perked up in their chair a little bit, listening to our conversation, and they're struggling, what do you say to them?
It's hard to see the light, you know, when you're in the depths, in the darkest part of the tunnel, and it's got a curve ahead of you too. You know what I mean? Like, it's like just while you're going through it, because I was going through it, dog. I mean, I literally broke down on stage in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, at the height of what we're talking about. And I was just like, I'm so tired. And I was crying, and people were making fun of me for it. And I was like, yo, I'm like telling y'all I need help, and you are condemning me for it. So anybody that, and I thought I would have never made it out of that. And anything that anybody could be going through alone in the depths of their mind, and they feel like they can't get out of it, dude, you totally can. And you will laugh later. It is a real thing. You can 100% get out of it, but it's by making positive steps.
I've been trying to like bring up the conversation about anxiety and depression and mental health as much as humanly possible, and try and normalize it, talk about it. Because, you know, for a long time, I sort of suffered in silence, and I've been thinking about this pandemic, and I know there's so many millions of people, and it breaks my heart that they also are suffering in silence. And I wondered if you thought during this crazy time, like, you have a lot of time to yourself and your thoughts. How's that been for you? Is that a benefit or a burden, would you say?
What a beautiful question, dude. It's kind of crazy because, I'm sorry. I have always been able to talk to my notebook, right? But even then, there are things that I hadn't dealt with. And I remember it was about 5 years ago when I had this crazy panic attack, and I didn't even really understand what was going on.
I had one, bro.
The
breakthrough.
Yeah, it was like a huge one. And I'd had panic attacks or whatever. This was different because then it changed how I viewed reality. And I went through this thing called derealization, where you feel like you're kind of out of it.
I speak your language. Go ahead.
My buddy, Chris Zaru, who's actually my manager, he was like, man, you got anxiety. And I was like, no, I don't. He's like, you have anxiety, bro. And I was like, no, I don't. Like, because I didn't want to be, you know, I don't know, like labeled as this person with anxiety. My mom had anxiety. It was this whole thing. But I say all that to say I'd always been able to write. But now, as a father and a husband and someone who is still very much a part of the scene, you know, Twitch, playing video games and streaming with people and all this stuff, you know, it can be a lot. But I see a therapist. I see a therapist once a week. She's the bomb. And it allows me to get these thoughts out. But even before her, I was always still speaking to loved ones and people that I felt close with, even if it was difficult and scary to initiate. I still did that. So I think that is something that's really important.
Right. And you're right. Like, the simple fact of like talking about it on any level. I mean, I had the same experience where I was like, I don't have anxiety. What's anxiety? That's a word that like my father would say. Anxiety is not a real diagnosis of anything. It just means you're lazy. So that's something my dad would say.
Yeah.
And come to find out that's not the case. And simply just talking about it. If you have a 10-minute conversation with someone, say, I don't know what I'm thinking. I'm feeling kind of weird, feeling a little nervous. I get this kind of fight or flight. I get real scared. I start to get out of my body a little bit. All those triggers, you could talk to somebody about it. You'll feel better like that. Like, that's already one way to like bring anxiety levels down. The 1-800 song obviously was, I mean, I know what it did for other people's lives. You saved lives. What did it do for you?
It completely and utterly changed my life. And I remember the moment that it happened. It was the MTV Awards, and I was on stage, and I really wanted to give this speech. It was the biggest platform I had at that moment in my life, and I wanted to say something.
The song is called 1-800-273-8255, the number for the National Suicide Prevention Lifeline. It's an imagined phone call between someone in pain and a lifeline operator. After the VMA's performance, calls to the hotline went up a staggering 50% from those looking for help, and opened up a national dialogue on mental health that was desperately needed.
So it's like, it changed my life almost in, like, if I'm just being selfish, like it was amazing. It kind of threw me into this like mainstream household, you know, being known, which was amazing, but for a good,
all the right reasons. Yeah.
And so that was really special. That also affected me in an extremely negative way, because I went from 0 to 100. And then everywhere I'm going, I'm talking about suicide constantly and, suicide and suicide prevention, but still it's a very dark place, right? That's why I always say the people at the Lifeline are just in the real heroes, because they deal with these dark things every single day.
Project Healthy Minds is an organization that you're involved in. I want you to just tell me about it in a second, but we do have the man who can break it down for us, CEO Phil Shermer. So Phil, if you can, jump in with Logic and I, and tell me a little bit about how you guys, I know there's sort of like two main goals for the organization. What are they?
The first goal is to shatter the stigma of mental health. And the second is to make it easier for people to find mental health services.
I love that. Logic, you've been incredibly honest about your struggle with mental health. What did they come up to you and say?
I was just seeing people from all walks of life and color and background and religions kind of coming together and unifying about speaking up about this specific thing, right, that plagues us, specifically just the negative side of mental health. And I think a lot of it has been social media, not to get too crazy, but I think it is. Everybody's trying to be on one. So when you have these young kids now, especially that even get a few thousand or even just a couple hundred followers for real for themselves, they always got to be on. Everything has to be perfect. For the girls, the angle has to be this. And it's like, girl, you're 14. Go play in a creek and have fun. What are you doing?
Right. Exactly.
So I think it's that's finally actually affecting, the everyday man and woman and young kid, as though they were themselves famous because everybody is watching every move that they're doing.
Phil, the numbers are startling. 1 in 4, listen to this stat, 1 in 4 18 to 24-year-olds are seriously considering suicide. 3 times increase in depression during the COVID era. I mean, how do you help people during these tough times?
It's a great question. I believe this is the most urgent moment in history on mental health. 2 of the biggest causes of that gap are the stigmatization of the health topic and how hard it is for people to find help. If you Google mental health, there's more than 1 billion hits on Google. So how does anyone know where to begin? And part of what I think we need to do in 2020, it should not be so hard to find mental health support, to take that first step. Right now, it's very hard just to take that first step.
Yeah. I'll tell you where it should start, maybe in the medical field, because from my own experience, I went to my general practitioner, like I was getting a physical, and we started talking about mental stuff and how you doing. And I'm like, I don't know, I'm having some pretty racy, crazy thoughts and this and that. And she, at the end of the day, was trying to prescribe me Klonopin. And I'm like, okay, I'll try anything sort of thing. And she literally told me, this is my doctor, literally like got close to me and said, I wouldn't tell anybody. They'll think you're crazy.
Wow.
Think about that for a second. This is my own doctor telling me to like go out of the room, go fill a prescription of something, take it, but don't tell anybody because they'll look at me.
Also, not to interrupt you, but think about this. This is also, and sorry, Phil, this is also something that I dealt with because I had certain friends of mine that were like, oh, maybe you just need medication. And I think this stigma is so, like, people are so quick to throw pills at it and try to muffle it down. And in many ways, that's like very insulting to people who are at a level where they actually do need medication. Do you know what I mean? Like, because that's a real thing when it comes to depression or, even down to a chemical line such as schizophrenia and bipolar. And at the end of the day, and it was so hard. It was the hardest thing I ever had to do in my life was face my demons without chemically suppressing them to find that equilibrium. And I did that. Now, not necessarily everybody can because they may be at a place where they do need pills. But for, like you said, a medical practitioner, for a doctor, first thing to throw a pill at somebody, I think that's crazy. What do you think, Phil?
I think that's exactly right. I mean, I think, we have no concerns talking about our physical health. Nobody gets scared to admit that they have a broken arm or they have a bloody nose. And so it should be the exact same way on mental health. And it is not a one-size-fits-all approach. And I think that's one of the challenges to how people have approached this historically. They categorize you either as ill or fine. And that's how the world works. There's a lot of gray in between, and everybody is on their own journey.
And quickly, I'll just share my story for anybody watching. I had a panic attack so bad in Santa Barbara once at a playground with my children. The fight or flight on that panic attack was so great. Left my own children. I went running. Left my wife knew what was going on. She knows. And I had to go back to the little hotel we were staying at. I crawled under the covers like I was a 7-year-old little boy, scared out of my mind. Not even my own children could save me from the real feeling that was so overwhelming. So those feelings, if you're talking to somebody and they're talking like this, just believe them, because the struggle is real. How's that to end the interview?
Drop the mic.
So anyway, man, I appreciate both of you guys so much. Logic, obviously, I wish you were 10 years older, because we would have broken some bread back in the MTV days and we'd be chilling right now. Phil, thank you for all that you're doing for Project Healthy Minds. We encourage people to go check that out. So thank you very much, both of you.